and welcome to the New Earth Co-Creators podcast. I am Deborah Bishop, otherwise known as Rev Deb, and of course I'm here with the beautiful, the delightful, the wise Isabel Hundt. Hello, Isabel, and you may notice there are three of us. We have grown.
Yes.
We also are joined by actually a sweet friend of mine that I've had the privilege to know and work with, who is an amazing individual mentor, being, teacher, musician, healing conduit on this planet at this time, and that is Mr. Peter Paul Parker, otherwise known as Spider-Man. Peter, welcome.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Thank you very much. You're wonderful people. So thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, I love it. Now, Deb already knows you. I know some of what you do. So I guess, yeah, what is it that you actually do? I know you're into the conscious music and you just had the Conscious Music Festival, which was great. And so what is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you do?
Life, really, about being a human being. I think being a human being has been hijacked personally, because when I was very young, it came to me very quickly. I realized that this was all wrong, and it all felt very wrong to me because I was born with five brothers. Like you commented earlier, says one of us had to be called Peter, so it was me, and it was very traumatic actually, my childhood, and it took me through this long journey of becoming a professional rock musician after walking away from the corporate world. And then I moved when the rock field started to wane a little bit. As I was a bass player, I got into mind, body, spirit a lot more, which was looking for the answers that I was looking for when I was a child. And I didn't realize that it was people actually thought the same way as me, which I thought was, wow, I'm not completely crazy. I'm actually tuning into something a little bit higher and a little bit deeper than myself. So I got into Qigong, started training with Qigong. And that took me to different levels of my consciousness. I started to unpeel the onion, as Dr. Bach from the Bach Flower Remedies talks about, and started getting to the trauma.
I love Bach Flower.
Yeah. Getting through the trauma and realizing what I was holding on to, probably from past lives as well. I would imagine that because some of the memories I've got from past lives, I think I was quite a force for not good. Basically, I was kind of like really into the material world, but this world, this lifetime, I've been through all of this, and it felt like I'm in the right place now, which is to be creative, to meet good people, and to actually form something that is coherent for other people to actually see and go, yeah, rather than this sort of airy fairy sort of woo-woo type sort of nothing's happening. There is things happening. There's things moving forward very, very slowly. And I do that now. I've set up a charity called Brighter Living, which helps with the elderly. I've just actually come back from doing a Qigong session with people with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. I'm getting great results with that. And they're asking me, why aren't I doing this on the NHS? And I could get into that, but that'd take ages. But there's like a brick wall stopping all of this stuff from us connecting with ourselves. So what I'm doing now really is bits and pieces of everything. I'm kind of an artist, as it were. I like to spread myself around, as it were, because I love doing different things and meeting different people and having different challenges. And I spoke with Deborah the other week, and we were talking about collaboration. And I'd like to hear both of you what you think about this, because we don't know how to collaborate with each other very well. And I find that intriguing because it's to do with trust in Tuari, the sixth chakra. It's to do with our intuition, because I feel from a very young age our intuition has been crushed. That's coming back now, which is the good news, but we got to do the work to get back in contact with that. So that's what I do. I'm like a coach as well. I coach people from childhood traumas, and I do regular Qigong classes online. I've set up the Bright Beings Academy. And I write songs, still play them out live. We do them with the Conscious Music Project, which is the latest thing that we're doing. And that was absolutely beautiful to get lots of like-minded players on one list, as it were, and really come up with the energy. The energy for me was to show there's actually quite a lot of people doing this. And I think that worked. That came across from the people who watched it. They got such fabulous feedback from that. I thought it was great. So, yeah, doing like a bit of everything. to answer your question in a long-winded way.
Yeah, I'm reminded, I can't remember who it was that made the movie, but I always remember that one of us, one of us. You guys may not know the reference, you might know the reference. It's a cult classic from many moons ago, before my time. But yeah, one of us. Freaks, was that the movie? Do you know it? Does either one of you know it, or am I making just a
No.
completely strange reference?
No, that was
Yeah,
nothing.
you know,
Just
We're
get it in
from
there.
Europe. We have no clue.
yes, there's
Just
a
get it in
channel.
there.
It's one of us, right? But yeah, so you're talking about the Conscious Music for the People Festival, which is really what we have collaborated on. And that was a really amazing experience, Isabel, in both directions. It was an amazing experience to bring artists together and to really be able to have this conversation. And it was an incredible feat for Peter, in the respect that, pulling off the technological reality, because we did it live streaming, but on not necessarily, I think we did on Facebook too, but we did it through Zoom, and just all the technological realities. And we didn't necessarily, we tried, right, Peter, you tried to have somebody do the technological, but there was really nobody available to do it.
No.
So it was one of those build the barn, paint the sets, do the show experiences, because it was, of course, the first one. There's another one coming up in August. And it was incredible. Like I said, for Peter, I think it was incredible on both sides, because on one side you had people saying, yes, let's do this. This was amazing. And on the other side, you also had people going, that's a really cool idea, but yeah, talk to me after you've done one. Right. So it was really fascinating.
It's always that tell me once you reached your goal, I'm like, and I'm that is really where it's getting to me. I know I probably should work through some stuff, but where it's getting to me when you have this really incredible vision for something that would unite people, that would help us collaborate, and then you have the people sitting there. I'm like, oh, once you've done it, I'll be on board. Once you have achieved this, I'll be on board. And you're just sitting, I'm like, no, it doesn't work without people. It doesn't work without you. It doesn't work just for one person to have the idea, to have the vision. And then people go, well, no, make it happen. And just like, well, it is a project that depends on us collaborating. And it's the action piece, that seems to really be missing. A lot of people want something, they want to see certain results, but they don't want to take the action. And we were talking about it last week, Deb and I, about how we bend, teachings to our own will and how it just works out. I have really been confronted with people who are like, I'm just staying in the flow. I'm just, doing this and however it aligns, without ever considering the impact it has on other people. We talked about it last week, right, in the podcast. And so that the collaboration, to know when you have these people, sometimes it feels like it's far and wide in between that you find those people. But at the same time, I make the experience with my film, right? I just set out the intention of the film and how I want this to, show up. And I turned around and suddenly had an entire team volunteer for doing the documentary. There wasn't anyone who said, I'm just going to watch and then I jump on board when you're done with it. So there's these two sides, when you have this idea and you have these people, and it's just like, oh God, where's the action? Where's the action? But let me ask you this, since you both are very far, involved with community and out there, right, with your work, have you noticed a trend that it almost has gotten a little harder to get people to take action? Or is it just me? Like for me, it feels like people are kind of just rooting themselves, almost like in this waiting position right now. I don't know if it's because they feel something is shifting and they don't want to jump the gun, like if I do this now, then what's going to happen in 2 months or 3 months, or something else. If it really that fear-driven collective, I'm not sure. I'm really trying if it's just me and it's just reflected back to me, or it's really happening in a society where, a lot of change is happening right now.
Peter, go for it.
Yes, I think you're dead right. There is an element of fear involved with this, which is incredible to me, because I've always been one to say, I'll do it. I'll do it. I always put my hand up and said, yeah, okay, I'll give that a go. Because what people are realizing that when you go through these difficult situations where you're talking about going with the flow, it's not in my flow, it's not in my raison d'etre, it's not for me. And basically they're just ignoring pain, I think, because to me, it's very stressful when you're doing something new, like setting up a concert, for instance. You think, wow, I've never done an online concert before. I've done offline concerts, which are easy. Just ring a guy up and you say, can you do the PA? Yeah. Can you hire the venue? Yeah. Can you do this? Get the artists, get the riders involved, get everything like that, get the meter and greeters and all that kind of business. But online, it was a different ball game altogether. And I didn't have fear because I was lucky enough to both connect with Deborah and Lisa. And they both looked at me as thinking, what's this guy going on about? And they go, yes, I'll do it. And I think, okay, this is great. It's a brilliant start. And I thought, there's no fear there. And when I got involved, when I approached other people, it was like, well, I'm not sure how much money's in it. What's it for? I said, this isn't about the money at this point. This is not about the money. This is about actually making a statement and standing up and doing something about what you feel is happening in the world. What do you think to that? Well, I'm not sure, I don't know if I can fit it in, or I got a sore throat or this kind of thing. And there was just an inaction there because people, when you speak about the ills of the world and the troubles in the world and the energy, the bad energy that's happening in the world, or the bad things that are happening, people go, well, there's nothing I can do. And then when you say, well, you can do this, come and do this with us, they go, well, I'm not sure. You think, well, there is something you can do, but basically what you're doing is you're hiding away from it. And I think it really is based in fear, because people just don't like the unknown. And what if we go into this known, where we can see where we could be heading, which is not going to go there, then that to me is more fearful than actually walking into the unknown and trying to collaborate with human beings. Because at the core of each and every single one of us is a beauty and a wonderful and like a creative being that's completely individual and completely unique to everybody else. So that to me is interesting straight away. And what I find boring is when you ask somebody, do you want to do something? They go, oh, you think, oh, come on, let's just give it a go and see what happens, and then let it roll. And I think, it is a fear. It is a fear that's
that was my full thought, actually, Peter, before you said, when you were asking the question, Isabel, I just had fear come across the radar screen. And interestingly enough, too, there's and we touched on this last week too, there's a lot of organizations out there. There was a lot of surprisingly, there was a lot of conscious music things that were flickering on the radar here and there and so forth. And it was like that thing of like, well, that's not my idea, that's your idea. So you take your idea and you develop your idea, and you show me that your idea has some value, and maybe then we'll do some collaboration. So it was really interesting. And those that had a little bit more career, they were a little further up the chain, if you will, or whatever, I can appreciate that they were kind of concerned about their own reputation and those kinds of things too. But when is that concern valid, and when is it really a block? It's like, where does it become an excuse, and where is it really a truth? Like, I get when you're doing something for the very first time and people don't really know who you are, that there can be a little bit of a reticence and sort of just a little bit of like, okay, let me learn a little bit about you. But it wasn't really even let me learn a little bit about you. It was literally prove to me that this is worth my time. And so it's an interesting paradox. On the one hand, I can understand some of where people were coming from, but on the other hand, at this moment in time, it feels so much like everybody jumps to the first sort of excuse that they can find to push it away until it looks like something that they understand, I guess, or that they feel is safe enough that they can maybe jump in. It's like, oh, okay, this isn't going to ruin me somehow or some way, or this isn't going to be something that demands something of me that I'm not prepared to give. And I think that we're in this place of where that's almost human nature right now, where people are kind of stepping into that role of I don't know what I'm going to do, I don't know how I'm supposed to do it. I'm not sure even if I matter. Like that's the stuff that I tend to pick up on, and people just not really sure if there's really anything they can do. It's like, oh well, this is happening, but I just take care of me and hope for the best. And none of that thinking is going to get us to any place new. That's all old, familiar ways of being, right?
Yeah.
That's those comfort zones. And if we're talking about New Earth, we're talking about conscious music for the people, which is about uplifting consciousness. We're talking about raising the vibration to a place where it hasn't been before, then nothing that has been before really exists here. So it's like at some point, those that are ready to be the pioneer, to blast off into space and possibly have to go through the black hole, which is kind of feeling like that's what we're almost doing here, is going through this sort of black hole, to see what's on the other side. That's really who, I guess, ultimately who's going to show up.
Yeah, it's interesting. By the way, earlier when we were talking, that's why I made the weird face, because my computer started to have a weird cracking noise and then the warning message. I'm like, oh shit, it's gonna go down.
Warning, truth coming.
And then I was like, well, okay, we're talking about fear here. Okay, I get it. But it's all solved. I think it was the battery, but it's back on. But anyway, I just had a thought, now I missed it totally. What I'm realizing is that no matter how much work we have done, and I know this about myself because I've been, over the last couple of days, I've really dug deep, because I realized how much I started to distract myself with YouTube, even if it was spiritual stuff. I was always on YouTube watching stuff, even if it was, good stuff, but I wasn't connected to myself. And I realized, like, oh my God, like even I, with the understanding that we have, the work that we do, the work that we bring out, right? I still even got sucked into that. Well, let's see what's going to happen in the future. Or, okay, well, do I even want to still show up? Do I even still want to do this? And all of that is even fear-based, even just like, I don't know, like, is it even worth it? Or is it even like, where are the people? Why are people not doing anything? It's still fear-based, right? Because we just have that fear and we have love on the other side. And if we were to come from love, I would probably sit here more and meditate instead of watching stuff. And actually, whatever I do, get to do that with a different attitude as well, instead of, oh, I need to post this, I need to do this, instead of, oh yes, I get to, because I get to be part of that world where we create and build something new. And I could tell, like, over time, especially over the last few months, it was this almost like a very slow poison, when you don't really get aware, like when you think you're still, in this high vibe mode, but then you start to get all these things reflected back to you, and I'm like, ooh, I'm getting there, but it's so slow. And I think where we're at now is even through music as well, where we get to wake people like me up again. I'm like, hey, you got stuck there too. You got kind of complacent with the work that you've done so far, with the healing work, with the work that you put into certain projects, all of that. Yes, can we take a rest? Can we take a break? Certainly. But we're now at this very moment, especially with the eclipse coming up on Thursday, where a lot of changes, where we need to reactivate the passion, reactivate that vibration. And I think that's where music is coming in very, very significant. Music to me is incredibly important. I mean, I meditate with music because it's almost like waves that take you. And I can't listen to mainstream because it's like a wave and you go down. It's like you're drowning, right? So we need more of that conscious music. How is music impacting you, Peter?
In a massive way. I use a lot of sound in my Qigong classes as well, using the voice, and it's your voice really that is you. That's your resonance. So that's the deepest resonance that you've got. So I use that a lot, especially the lower tones, which I think naturally why my voice is a little bit lower. singing voice anyway. Toning voice is a lot simpler when it's lower. And that was the lessons for me going through the Qigong training that I did, which is why I think when I met Deborah, I resonated so much with her, is because I'm so aware of the kind of the corruption within humanity, and so aware of the corruption in my lower chakras, that I need to heal my lower chakras before, because anyone can tune in to the higher vibrations. Anyone can do that. We all have the right to do that as human beings. But what happens is we've lost that that lower vibration contact. And I think music in itself will heal that. But also I feel that music has been a detrimental part of that, especially with the dissonant bass and bass drum of the hip hop and those kind of genres. When you listen to that outside of a club, it actually makes you feel sick. It's really, it's quite a really dark sound. So I think music as a healing modality, I think sound is going to be the next healing modality for humanity. And I think that there will be, well, there are now vibration tuning forks. They do use tuning forks in the National Health over here. And when I get my tuning forks out in my Qigong class and tap it onto a bone, say someone's sprained their wrist or something, or down their back, and if it's a light injury, it almost heals it straight away. People go, well, yeah, they had that fear, and you think, what, are you some kind of witch doctor or something? It's like, no, it's just a vibration. It's all because we are vibration, and then they start to get it. So I feel that sound and vibration is where we're going next with our healing modality. Once we start to, but we need to reconnect back to it, because we're being so far dragged out of it, and that's where the problem is. And music is a way of bringing you back, but it has to be the right kind of music. And it's difficult because I find the just sitting there playing an instrument, singing, you're putting a vibe across, but it's so beautiful when you get more musicians in a room and you're starting to just put that vibe together and let it flow and let it go. And I think that's where the gigs of the future will be a group of musicians, obviously having a bit of a rehearsal before, but having like mantras and things like that to go through as well. So there's like a big group experience. Right. I do that with my sound toning, but I'd love to do it with other musicians who are all conscious and on that level, to say, yeah, let's just play this through and see where it goes. And I'm sure that
music for the people.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
You know, it's interesting what you say about music, because it does go in all directions. And I've had a show that I've done off and on called Spiritual Light Theater, which is sort of a spiritual answer to organized religion, if you will, where it's not about a deity, it's about creativity and bringing things together through frequency, vibration, and creativity. Because, you know, no matter where you are in the world, you can sit down at a piano and play a middle C, and everybody will say, oh yeah, that's a middle C. Nobody gets up and says, I'm going to kill you for saying that. You know, sorry for taking it to such an extreme, but you know, it's okay. Like you can paint things and do stuff, and it's subject to the interpretation. What do you see in that? Oh, you know, I see like this light going up this tunnel. Do you really? Wow. I see like, you know, like somebody's throat. Oh, that's pretty wild. What do you see? I don't know. I see a mess, right? But everybody appreciates what they see. We have this connection through creativity. So I agree. Sound and frequency is really, you know, the next sort of, it's been out there for forever. But it's gaining more acceptability. People are beginning to seek it out and understand it, and to the lower vibration as well. And I don't think that that's not misunderstood by the powers that be. You know,
I think they know what they're doing.
I do too. I think that there's stuff put out there that is that lower frequency. Like, I don't know how uplifting it can be to hear somebody, with all due respect for anybody's art. I truly say this with all due respect. For me personally, just having somebody screaming it just like, it shocks my system. I don't know where to put it. And if I'm in my car and along comes a car driving next to me, and all you've got is this lower,
oh God,
echoing through the windows. It's like, it's amazing how like not only do I go, oh, your poor ears, because they're literally killing their hearing as they're doing that. But
Mm.
I literally I usually have cloaking and protection anyway when I walk around. It's just a natural state. But I kind of get more conscious of it, like just putting it around my vehicle. It's like just leave it out there because it literally resonates and vibrates, and you can feel it through your entire energetic system. That's
Yeah.
how invasive it is. It's really fascinating.
Mm.
I actually have a question for the two of you. Since we're talking about music, now my son grew up or is growing up with meditation music. I mean, that's how he falls asleep. He always has healing music from the time he was born, and he doesn't like mainstream TV nor movies. Like he hates Disney. He doesn't watch anything. He doesn't listen to any music. He doesn't like it. However, I have now noticed with a couple kids that are behaviorally a little bit more challenged, where I recommend having the kids listen to meditation music, that some of them actually despise this music when it actually is very soothing, very calming. And they literally get into anxiety and panic attacks listening to meditation music. And it's not just one person or one example. I've now seen it since I work with children, with numerous kids. And I wonder why. What are your thoughts on that?
Mm.
Because I can't figure it out. I'm like, why is it something that is actually aligned with your soul, that is meant to lift you up, and that's,
But you just said
um,
it, it's aligned. And when you're dealing with youngsters, little ones that are not aligned and don't necessarily know what that is and can feel a shift within them, right? That might be a good shift, but
mhm,
they don't get it. And so you're actually challenging their safety. They're not feeling safe in that situation because they're not understanding what's actually happening to them. And what you're amplifying is the reality that they are actually not in alignment with the frequency that you're giving to them, right? And so as adults, we can understand, even, at a certain age, we can begin to sort of feel like, okay, maybe this is something I can experience, but it doesn't have to be, impacting me in this way. But when they're young, and they feel like something is being disrupted, that's disrupting their normal, and
mhm,
that makes them not feel safe. So there's your anxiety, even though it's peaceful, it
yeah.
doesn't feel safe because they don't have that in them, and they probably don't have that in their household.
Yeah, it's a bit like me when I first started to try silent meditation. I couldn't do it. I felt angry. I felt agitated. I must admit, when I first started listening to meditation music as well, I did feel agitated. This is way before I did all the work on myself.
Interesting.
Now I can listen to almost any kind of music, and I can tell whether it's resonating with me or not. But at that point, I think Deborah's smack on the money with that is that it possibly is making a shift inside of them, is making them feel a bit, because we're coming through, and it might be, I don't know, it might be that they want more simple music. I don't know, because I feel music will come into a point where it will be very ethereal. But that's only a thought and a feeling that I've got. Whereas the chord structures will be in the music, but it'd be more of like a wash. But that's what I feel. It could be like that. But I don't know. It's interesting to hear that about the children, because I know when I get young kids into qigong and focusing on themselves, and we do funny little qigong exercise with your fingers and your hands, doing different things with your hands and things like that. They love it because it's a challenge to them, and they can focus their mind on it. But maybe that being able to come back inside of themselves might be a bit more of a challenge for them if you're sitting there just listening to a piece of music. But that could be it as well. Was what we say in our qigong practice, where your mind goes, your energy follows.
Yeah.
So if your mind is not wanting to go in the music and it's being played at you, and it'll be agitated away from it. So there's obviously something there that's making them reject it. So could
Also,
be more.
try toning, try having them vocalize.
Yeah.
See what that will do to toning is just it's non-chanting, but it's chanting because you're not chanting.
Yeah.
You're
So
just making
you mean
sound.
like them,
Yeah.
building?
Tone, have them
Mhm.
tone, like have them sit and just tone with them, and it's really interesting because if when you get a group together, but even as two,
Mhm.
you hit dissonance and you hit harmonies, and it's really fascinating, but they're vocalizing it, which means they're unlocking themselves, which actually for children can feel really fun, and it feels a heck of a lot less threatening, and they can tap into emotions very easily because they're opening, and your voice is like, that's the expression point, that's a point of power. So you might want to try that. We have like 5 minutes left, guys. I'm just calling ourselves attention to it, and I want to be clear because I never said this, none of us said this. Peter's in the UK. So we have, us sitting in the US, you're in the UK. But what I find fascinating about all of us is you were raised in Germany. I was raised in Canada by parents who were born in Africa. So, and then we have Peter, you were raised in England, yes?
Yeah, London, yeah.
So we have this really interesting global perspective. I've lived in the US, I think, longer now than I lived in Canada because I moved here pretty young. But I mean, older enough to be on my own, but still pretty young. And I think I don't know where you're at, Isabel, if you've lived in Germany longer than here still.
Not quite yet. I'm almost halfway.
Almost halfway. Yeah, I just crossed that halfway
halfway.
mark. I just crossed that halfway mark. And so it's really fascinating that we have all these different perceptions, and I love it because we're talking about a global community and a global reality. The Conscious Music for the People is an event. Again, it's happening in August. Like New Earth co-creators, we also have a Facebook group. I'm hoping we can kind of align and begin to merge what we're doing together. That's a conversation that we are involved in, or starting or having, or somewhere in the flow of all of this, because we're like-hearted, like-minded, and it makes sense to do it. But still, New Earth website is newearthcc.org, whereas the New Music for the People, or Conscious Music for the People, has the Conscious Muse Collective.com, consciousmusecollective.com, and we should probably interchange links so that we have them all in same places, so people don't have to go to both. But what are our closing thoughts today on this lovely conversation about just consciousness and music and vibration and frequency? Peter, what do you think?
I see the synchronicity of what we're feeling, even though we're in different parts of the world. It's synchronistic, and it's refreshing, because when we were talking a little while ago, last week I think it was, we were talking about the same thing, and then, wow, I'm seeing that as well. And Isabel was talking about that, saying, well, where's this coming from? And you go, well, yeah, I'm seeing that as well. Why is this? It's almost like a drift. You start to drift off. No, I've got to come back to the moment. Be in the moment. Focus on yourself. Focus on opening yourself up, and then you flow better. But if you get hooked into somebody else's rhythm that is possibly not connected properly, you get a little bit lost with this. So it's always coming back to yourself, but also helping each other. When you say, well, I think you're a little bit out of alignment there, I think you could look at that a little bit more deeply, and that's important. But I think it's amazing, speaking to both of you and seeing that we're feeling the same thing and seeing the same thing and wanting to change in the same way. I think that's excellent. So I'm very happy to be here.
We love having you because I really love and appreciate this conversation. I think to just narrow it down, it's like reactivation through sound, right? Because I believe, like, for me, my experience has always been music is bringing me back to the moment. And the more calm, I especially love women chanting, like the almost like the fairy like women voices. I love that with meditation music. But it always brings me back to me, like the music. And so I think sound healing is going to be one of those very important tools through, music, through different artists, through, anything that makes sound, really, to reactivate by coming back into ourselves.
Definitely.
And it's
Yeah.
a connecting point. It's an amazing connecting point because music and sound is a shared experience. We're
Mm.
not just having this individual kind of thought of something. We're hearing something that we're collectively receiving. And that's something that's really important to acknowledge as well. It's you know, we're subject to, I mean, unlimited amounts of stuff coming at us all the time, but our brain actually deals with 30,000 pieces of information in any given second, right?
Yeah.
There's 30,000 pieces of information that each one of us are processing right now. And when you can bring things into alignment, right, through sound, frequency, music, there's power in that. It brings a shared experience where there might not be. And if you're hearing odd sounds coming from me, I've muted it a couple of times. My boy Chooks here has decided to chew on his favorite bone as we're sitting here.
Yeah, we have less than a minute.
Yes.
Yeah.
So everybody, again, the websites are consciousmusecollective.com and newearthcc.org. And we also have our Facebook groups and so forth. So make sure to check us out. And hey, if you are a pioneer, if you are willing to be a pioneer, if you're thinking, hey, I'd like to at least try being a pioneer, please, we would love to have you join us. We can create an entirely new way of being together. Thank you, Peter. We're so glad to have you aboard. I adore you. You are Spider-Man of the conscious world. And Isabel,
I know, right?
as always.
Yes,
So
I love it. Thank you, Peter. I hope we can have more of those conversations because I really enjoyed it.
hey,
Yes,
I'm
I'll be back.
expecting him to be a fixture at this point. We're becoming our own morning show.
He's like, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, there
I'll
you
see
go.
you. I'll see you next week.
Okay. Peace and love, everybody.
Don't
And
mind it.
remember, together we rise.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.